I came in first into my first All-Ireland. You know, it was a great experience, and after that then it was a case of, Jesus, we were expecting to be in the final every year, and it was a great journey. We were in 6 finals in a row, so there were some good days, there were some very bad days also, but this is a new group, and you know, it's been as enjoyable as ever for me as an older player now in the squad. I've enjoyed this year probably more than most. I suppose when you get to my age as well, you kind of, you know, you treasure it a bit more as well, and you take everything in a bit more. When you first put on the jersey, there's an expectancy that you'll win All-Ireland medals. This year, the expectancy mightn't have been as big as other years, and I think you saw that, I think, in the semi-final against Mayo. The reaction to winning that game was, I think, really a county who had been taking one game at a time. A county happy to be back in the final, and maybe a lot of supporters didn't expect that. It's a young man's game, definitely now. I mean, the commitments, the level of training that goes into it. I mean, fellas are doing something every day of the week, so it is difficult. But look, I love playing with Kerry. I'm really passionate about it, and also I felt that, you know, it was important with a young group coming through, that there was older fellas there maybe to guide them through certain experiences. And I suppose as a player, you're greedy as well. You want to get as much as you can out of your career. And I knew with the group coming and Eamon in charge that there was a good chance that we could win more All-Irelands. When you play for a county like Kerry, you know, competition is so fierce that there's times when your form dips, and you know, there's competition for places and you don't get a pick. But I think the most important part of that scenario is that you react well to it. I think it's a test of your character, it's a test of how much of a teammate you are. So I've always tried to react very well to being either dropped or maybe not playing on the starting team, and then try to turn around into positive, that, you know, I get my chance at some stage during games and to come on and make a big impact, put the shoulder to the wheel and react in the right way, I think, is the most important thing.
It is all over. The unbeatable team have been beaten. A tactical masterclass by the great Jim McGuinness.
I suppose everyone has been saying everyone was playing for second place this year, at Dublin were the team to beat, and no, could anyone beat them? And I think Donegal, you know, really showed what a great team they were by going out and really playing very well and beating Dublin comfortably in the end. So I think both Kerry and Donegal are very comfortable in their own game plan and their own system, and I think both teams would have been very confident that they could beat any team on any given day. So I think for the respective squads, it's not a surprise, but for the general public, maybe they wouldn't have expected this pairing. I think the one thing you get over experience playing in some of these finals, that the final takes on a life of its own, and but you just have to prepare as best you can, try cover every angle. So it's going to be an intriguing battle. And of course, both managers will be trying to throw something different into the mix as well for a final, which is very important as well. So it'll be very interesting. It's hard to say who's going to win it, but I think both teams will certainly, give it their all. Down through the years, it really shapes a player, you know, whether you win or lose finals, it's what you're judged on. So for the younger fellas coming through this year and last year, I think, you know, they would be very keen to follow that tradition, and I think it's great that we're back in the final. But look, it's no good being in a final, you have to win it, so that's where our preparation is going now. I can definitely say that, you know, we've trained very hard all year. There's a great bond, a great togetherness in the group, and Eamon and his management team have done their homework on every team this year, so we will be very well prepared, and I'm very confident we'll give a good performance. Whether that's enough in the day, I can't quite say.
Yeah, the views of Kerry's Declan O'Sullivan. Unusual to see a Kerry team in an All-Ireland final. Normally we see them coming with loads of medals already in their pockets. 9 of this team making their first appearance.
Yeah, and that can often be a good thing because they can play without fear. If it was any other county, you would say maybe they'd be very nervous. But Kerry are a bit different. You know, they are the aristocrats of the game. They can come with a new team. They've showed it so many times over the years that when they get to Croke Park, they actually play better than they play anywhere else because they think it's nearly their right to win.
But they are, by contrast, though, playing against a team with experience, having won the All-Ireland 2 years ago, so there is that aspect to it.
There is, and I suppose what we're going to see from Kerry today is probably, I think, a much more defensive type of Kerry team than you'd normally see in an All-Ireland final, and they may have to reduce their own sort of individual flair to suit the occasion because they can't go gung-ho against Donegal in the same way as Dublin did, or they will get picked off. So I think that any other team playing against Donegal today, an inexperienced team, Donegal would probably overpower them, but the big question mark is the fact that it is Kerry.
We saw this, of course, as well, Kieran, 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, with Dublin coming with this team, kind of, you know. I know they had some experienced players in it, obviously, but a lot of those lads were young lads, kind of, you know. They were barely in the Dublin team at the time.
Yeah, and I suppose when you haven't experienced the Donegal system, I think you can talk about tactics and you talk about systems, but what it does, it psychologically gets into the player's mind. And you know, when they play that defensive system and they're up against good forwards and they get a grip and they squeeze and they turn them over, all of a sudden the roar of the crowd goes up, and the psychological effect that can have on the players, it totally knocks them out of sync and their rhythm. And you would like to think that Fitzmaurice has learned from the 2012 experience where he was a selector under Jack O'Connor, where they did frustrate Kerry that day. They were comfortable right throughout. They were 6 points ahead. Kerry got a late consolation goal, and you'd like to think that they have experience of this Donegal system and they will learn from it. But as Colm said, Kerry have to adapt. They have to find a way. You know, they found a way against Cork by playing Declan O'Sullivan deep. They used Donaghy against Mayo. They have to find something different today. I think Kerry's core strength has been from number 8 to number 15, and that's where Donegal get at you. So they're going to have to adapt and try something different today.
And Kerry do, of course, have people like the man we were talking to there, Declan O'Sullivan, to come on if needs be. But the thing that I'm fascinated by, Joe, is, and I was asking Eamon Fitzmaurice, he wasn't giving anything away about this last week there, I was trying to tease him out. Would Colm Cooper make even a cameo appearance? Now, he was saying no, but could you see it at all?
There's no sentiment with this Donegal group, you know. I mean, he's going to have to be able to take hard hits, you know, if he's rushed back in, you know, and he gets damaged again. I mean, is it worth it? You know, I don't see any situation here where Kerry are coming down the stretch with a comfortable lead and Colm's doing a victory lap. I mean, that's the only possibility, but I think it's an outlandish possibility given the circumstances. And I agree with Kieran that it's one thing, you know, it's one thing for a manager to say to himself, well, look, we've got to work for this Donegal system now. He has had 2 weeks, 10 days at most, because he would have had to rest the players until Thursday after the Mayo game. He didn't know that Donegal were going to be there, and now all of a sudden this is on him. You know, Donegal are just going to do what they've been doing for 4 years, and that they'll do that automatically through thick and thin. As you saw in the Dublin match, it was 9-4. Well, it's not an issue for them psychologically because they just, as he describes it, drive the game plan. Kerry's problem is that at very short notice they've had to totally recalibrate. So they've had to recalibrate first of all from the Mayo drawn game where their attack plan wasn't working. They brought in Starr, which rescued them. It was an act of desperation. You could describe it as an inspired act, I suppose, but it saves them. Then that becomes the tactic for the replay. It's a high ball extravaganza. Now you're playing Donegal. The high ball extravaganza is no good. The system that you've worked on for a year and a half, which is to release O'Donoghue and Guinea in that 14 to 21 yard line area, that's no good because of the way Donegal play. That's the area that they specifically deny you. So now at short notice they're having to recalibrate, and it's a huge ask, I think, for Fitzmaurice to be able to get the Kerry players into some sort of a systematic frame of mind when they've only had 10 days to prepare.
OK, well, as we said, 9 Kerry players making a first appearance in an All-Ireland final today, and we are going to hear now from another man also making his first All-Ireland appearance. That is the match and everybody talking about what a prospect he was. He's certainly been, I suppose, the right man, the right place, at the right time. Will that be fair enough?
Well, his dad was Earl Woods to his Tiger. You know, whenever he was a child, everything was worked on religiously. It's the 10,000 hour rule. If you have it all done by the time you're 14, you've got all the skills. You know. This is Michael Dara, the bomber listen, and Gooch rolled into one. He's the on-field manager, if you like Jim McGuinness's persona on the field. He starts off the game playing defensively. When he realises then, 20 minutes into the game, that Dublin are under severe psychological pressure, he just comes up the field, he scores a point, then he sets up that goal, bats the ball out of clutches. Now he comes to the middle of the field. At this stage, Donegal are trying to put the game beyond doubt, and Murphy's in an attack and roll, but he comes to the middle of the field, he's brilliant in the air in the middle of the field. He sets and trains that move that leads to the killer goal. The game's now over. But he wins the hard ball, does the hard yards. Kerry have to disrupt him today, but how do you disrupt him? He plays in several different positions. Is Aidan O'Mahony going to follow him all over the field and leave a deficit at fullback? The other thing about him is this, that he knows what to do, when to do it, how to do it. As the game progressed, now he's on his goal line. In front of his keeper, there he comes, hand pass. He is the complete Gaelic footballer, he's the team leader. He's got the power and strength of a rhinoceros. I mean, he is impossible to hurt. And I mean, you see, we've given the main areas where he plays his game. He usually starts in the defensive area, plays there for the first 15, 20 minutes. As the other teams start to break down psychologically with the Donegal system, he then starts to advance. He'll then come to the middle. He's one player who's got freedom within the system, but he is the critical player. I've said it before, there are 2 indispensables in the Donegal squad, McGuinness and Murphy. The others can come and go. But without Murphy, none of this would be happening.
Sure, yeah. I saw you wincing, by the way, when Colin McFadden scored that goal yet again.
Listen, but I agree with Joe. I think Michael Murphy is the complete footballer. He is their leader. He's their go-to man. He delivers consistently. And you've got to ask the question, is he markable? You know, who have Kerry got to put on him? Because of the way, you know, it's easy if you come up against a big full forward who stays in full forward, you can put a full back in to disturb him, similar to the way Donny was disturbed two years ago. The high ball didn't work, but Murphy goes out, he goes around, gets on possession. He has so many qualities, and I fully agree with Joe. He's a huge player. For
he's a brilliant player, but I heard Joe, you calling him the best player of this generation.
I think he's the dominant player of his generation. Yeah.
Well, I think that's overstressing it, because
look at Glenty's 2-time Donegal
champions. Could I make the point? You have 3 O'Sheas who have 100 medals between them. He's not better than them, or he's a better footballer than the O'Sheas.
I think he's a better all-round footballer than the O'Sheas.
The best footballer this year has been James O'Donoghue or Dermot Connolly for club and county. The best footballer of the last 10 years has been Colin Cooper. If you want to go back a generation, you're including Jack O'Shea and Pat Spillane.
Michael Murphy. If no Michael Murphy, no All Ireland in 2012, his performance in the final. His performance in the final was a performance for the ages. Colin Cooper, whenever he played Donegal, whenever he played the Ulster teams, has consistently been marked out of the games. Consistently. My question is this: how do you mark Murphy out of the game? And that's the question that Kieran's talking about. I think as an individual, sure, if he was born in Kerry, he would have, you know, like everyone else, he would have all those.
I'll tell you what we'll do.
He wasn't.
We'll let the lads here continue this discussion, but we'll head back out again for another little while. This time to catch up with Marty Morrissey, because he has a couple of All-Ireland winners with him.
Well, the tension is palpable here on Jones's Road as the clock ticks towards 3:30. I'm joined by 2 legends of the game. The man here to my right has 8 All-Ireland medals. Ogie Moran, whose, of course, son is playing in the All-Ireland final. Are you nervous, Dad?
I am nervous, yeah. I'm nervous for him. I hope it'll be a great day. It'll be a great day for occasion for him, and hopefully Kerry win. Hopefully he'll do well. Yeah.
What's it been like in the house all week? I mean, has there been a lot of talk about this final, or have you tried to avoid the conversation?
I think it was kind of slow early on the week, Monday and Tuesday. I thought we'd never pass, but it's a week when my wife is fine, you know. But he's nice and relaxed now, so it should be a great game. Looking forward to it immensely.
Do you think you can win it?
I think it's going to be very close. We could be here again in 2 weeks' time, so we could.
I wonder, is the Colin Gooch Cooper going to make an appearance?
You never know. You never know.
Good Kerry man saying no.
As a player, and since taking over the Bannister's bib in 2012, he led the Kingdom to last year's semi-final and has now taken them all the way, of course, to this year's decider. But the question is, can they continue the momentum from their epic semi-final victory over Mayo against Donegal today?
And Kerry are in the All-Ireland final. The battle is over.
It's great to be in an All-Ireland final. You know, that was our aim at the start of the year, to get back into the final, and now that we're there, we want to try and finish the job. You know, there's an expectancy there in Kerry that September means All-Ireland finals, and people are accustomed to going to Dublin at that time of the year, and it's really, as September comes, that the public really get behind the team in Kerry. When I took the job, I knew that there were a lot of very good players there. I knew some of the younger lads coming through from my time involved with the under-21s, that once they got exposed to the top level and a good level of coaching, and once they got mixed in with the older lads who'd so much experience, I knew that we'd have a serious squad down the line. But you know, these things can take time, and it did take us a bit of time at the start, definitely, to get things going in the right direction.
It's dropping. Is it got the legs? They're underneath it, and Mayo save it. And surely the referee will blow the full-time whistle. He has, and thank God we have a replay.
We had 2 massive games with Mayo, and you know, look, I suppose we had a bit of a rub of the green in the end to come through, which you need in those kind of tight games, especially the first set down in Limerick then was a great occasion. The fact it went to extra time, there were so many different things going on throughout the game. There was controversy, there was things going on off the field, there was a great atmosphere there. You know, it was one of those special occasions, so again, it was fantastic for us to come out on the right side of it. It would have been a tough one to have lost, definitely. Donegal beat us in the 2012 quarter-final on their way to Sam Maguire that year, so you know, we're familiar enough with them. They've been very successful the last couple of years under Jimmy McGuinness, so certainly it'll be an interesting final, a different final. The last in the semi-final, you know, Donegal were just relentless in the second half. They got goals at the right times and they finished off the game well. So it probably wasn't the pairing everyone was expecting, but at the same time it's no huge surprise either that there's someone different there as well. We'll be very focused now on getting everything right, making sure that we can perform to our optimum level. If we can perform as well as we can perform, it'll take a very good team to beat us. So, you know, of course there's a lot of sideshows and there's a lot that goes with an All-Ireland final day, but we'll have tunnel vision now to make sure that everything is done right and everything is done well and the lads are ready, and, you know, they'll enjoy the day, of course, but it's about performing on the day and trying to win the game.
Yeah, the thoughts of the Kerry manager, Eamon Fitzmaurice. And Kieran Whelan, you have been looking at Kerry, at their setup, the way they play, and sort of building it around the role of James O'Donoghue, because we'll be talking, of course, about Michael Murphy for Donegal's.
Yeah, well, as I said, I think Kerry will go defensive today. They will have to close down that central channel. And you can see they have been doing it at times this year. They've done it very effectively against Cork, but there they've 12 men behind the ball, and that's the area where Donegal will look to get at them. It's a quick ball out of defence by David Moran. And looking at the role of O'Donoghue today, you can't leave O'Donoghue inside like Bernard Brogan was left inside, like Jamie Clark, like Conor McManus. I think he's going to come out the field at times and try and get involved in the play. We saw him hit a great diagonal pass. Here we have them breaking out again. Johnny Buckley, again they had those 12 men back. O'Donoghue again just drifts out, moves out to that 50-yard line and wins a simple free. So I do think, Michael, defensively they have to close down Donegal. It will be a game of cat and mouse to a certain degree, but I think they can utilise Donoghue in a creator capacity. He's very good at setting up scores as well as taking them. He's better than your natural corner forward. See here, great ball across. It results in a simple score from Donegal Walsh over the bar. You know, next piece coming up against Galway, and watch here how he sucks in 7 Galway defenders. He's the danger man. They go to him. It's just a simple pop pass, and again results in a simple score. So you look at that access of Donaghy and O'Donoghue coming into this game today. They will utilise Donaghy at times in full forward. I think they will try a long ball in, but they're going to have to realise space is going to be closed down by Neil McGee. And that's why I think O'Donoghue will come out. He played out here in 2012. You can see he starts to run from deep here and comes and takes the score from distance. So Kerry are going to need scores from outside that 35-metre zone. They're going to need the likes of David Moran, you know, Anthony Marr, Johnny Buckley to pitch in and get a few scores, as O'Donoghue. And I think Stephen O'Brien's included in the team for pace and breaking out defence and running at that Donegal defence. So it's going to be interesting to see how they set up, but as I said at the outset, they have to adapt and do something different.
Well, O'Donoghue, the great thing about him, I thought, against Mayo was in the first 10 minutes of that game he started poorly, had a couple of bad wides, but he never let his head drop. And I thought it was most interesting that day when as soon as the next ball came from he was going for it, he
gets himself into the game. He doesn't like, he was up against Keith Higgins, and Keith Higgins is probably one of the best man markers in the game.
But he is playing man to man in that context.
Oh, he is, but when he was double teamed in that first Mayo game for that first half, he comes out and he'll get on possession. So Kerry have got to get him on the ball. Like, he 24 possessions against Mayo in the drawn game, 22 the last game. That's huge amount of possessions for an inside forward, and I think he will come out a bit. He'll drift in and out, you know.
Is he as important to Kerry as, say, Michael Murphy is to Donegal?
Absolutely, because he's the main scorer, he's the main scoring threat, but also the big thing about him is every time he gets the ball, and you could see it in those clips, his main thing is take on his man, and also the other thing about him, he wants goals. And goals win games. If he's able to stick a couple in the net today for Kerry, it would be hard to see them beaten. And that's what his intent is. He'll get a goal first, and if he's pushed out, he'll go for a point.
Okay. Now, there's actually already been one trophy won today here at Croke Park for the first time since 1979.
I think we knew that Dublin were going to come very hard at us, and you know, there was a moment where you would think, are we going to be able to deal with this? You know, that this is a top class team we're playing here. But I think the belief was in the dressing room in the lead-in, probably a week, 10 days in the lead-in to the game. It was in the hotel the weekend off the match, and I was in the dressing room before the game. And when we found ourselves a point up at half-time, I'd only kind of reaffirmed that, and it was just a matter of trying to push on then. And we felt the first 15 or 20 minutes after half-time were very, very important, you know, when we had to try and go for the game and take the game to Dublin, and that's the way it panned out. And I think we were comfortable in the last 15. We won a semi-final, you know. We really enjoyed it. It was a fantastic game, fantastic moment, but you know, the bottom line is there's nothing won, and we have to try and now put our best foot forward for the final. massive opportunity and a massive challenge, and that's what we're looking forward to, both of them things, and hopefully we can take the opportunity and face the challenge down. That's what this is about, and I think to be playing Kerry in the All-Ireland final is something very, very special, and with the minors involved as well, it makes it even more special. So we're delighted to be where we are. We're going to need a full 70 minutes if we're going to win an All-Ireland final, and that doesn't matter who the opposition is, but when you're playing Kerry, it's a big, big challenge. So we need to be ready from the first minute in this game. I suppose when you're playing these teams and looking at these teams down through the years, you'll be very familiar with a lot of them anyway, and it's just a matter of trying to maybe see who's new into the setup and you know, what's going on in certain games. And you know, Eamon Fitzmaurice is a very intelligent manager, and he knows his players very well, and he's flexible as well. He's shown that over the last 2 seasons, that he can change system and style for a given opposition. They do put a lot of quality ball in, and I think they're all really good kickers, and there's not one player in the Kerry team that can't deliver a quality ball on the diagonal in particular. But I think their bread and butter for the last number of years have been the quality of a bounce pass in front of their forwards. They've got that in their locker. You know, they've got really good, intelligent players coming up from the back. The Kerry midfield is a big part of their operation, there's no doubt about that. I mean, David Moran was exceptional, I felt, the last day. The amount of possession that he had and the quality of his passing, it's really top drawer, and Anthony Maher wasn't far behind him, and that's being honest about it. They're doing a lot of damage in the middle of the park, both on the opposition's kickouts and on their own, so that's going to be a big part of the game, there's no doubt about that. I suppose they've done what we've tried to do over the last 12 months in many respects, and that's we've tried to bring in fresh players that can add a new impetus, that can add more energy. It's a nice kind of mixture for them now. A lot of energy, a lot of youth, and an unbelievable amount of quality within the team as well. It's a massive, massive game. It's a massive opportunity, and we've got to be 100% if we want to take it.
Well, that, of course, the Donegal manager, Jim McGuinness. You know, there was a time in Donegal when winning an All-Ireland, they would have dined out on it for the next 20 years, but not Jim McGuinness, not this current bunch of players. They want more. They are here to get it. And who's to say that they won't? Yeah, Colin Morgan coming to you next, because you've been having a look at 2 players, one a Donegal man, Ryan McHugh, and David Moran, of course, of Kerry. Son of Ogie, and has really kind of, in the last couple of matches, had really arrived on the scene, if you like, although he has been around for a couple of years. Yeah,
he's 26, but he's missed, I think, 3 full years with injuries, and his kicking of the ball is fantastic. That ball in the semi-final, which saved the day for Kerry, into his good friend, the star. But his kick passing in both semi-finals was fantastic. He kicked a couple of brilliant points in the drawn game, and his use of possession was incredible in Limerick. I think Kerry may have an advantage in their kick passing, but Moran in that game got more possession than any player that I ever heard of. 47, I think, which would be about double the normal. And then you go from a 6'5" man to the smallest player.
Could be a strange one to put into the corner forward, because he's great pace. He could be the surprise package. So I suspect Donegal might have a few changes. Kerry might.
It will be surprising, I think, if Donegal start McBrearty, because you might say, sure, he does the same thing, why shouldn't he be able to do it from the start? But there is a psychological thing. You know, you have less pressure if you're starting on the bench, then you're thrown in, and every time he comes in, he seems to be able to score a few great points. But if he starts, he often is a passenger in the team.
I think the matchups will be key. I think the Kerry backline will be pulled. They'll be given particular job, 1 or 2 players, they'll know who's coming in and they'll follow them. You know, that Kerry back line, I think, will rotate a lot.
Is that something, Colin, that you would notice in a colleague? I'm sure you never noticed in any of that Meath team that you played in. I have no doubt about that. But would you notice a fella, he's, as they would say in horse racing, that you're very fond of, sweating up in the parade ring before the match?
Actually, we had a couple like that who were happier, and I'm sure Matthew McCabe wouldn't mind saying that every time he came on as a sub, he used to score goals.
Yeah.
He was just fantastic at doing that. And oftentimes you have players who are happier to come on when the heat has gone out of the battle. And I think that's the case. Maybe not so much with Christy Toy, but I'd say certainly with McBrearty. But I think each team will have done a lot of talk. When such and such a fella comes on, you have to take him. You know? So it's not as if they're planning for the starting 15. They'll have planned for every single sub that might come on.
It's also the strategic thing, which is that I think that Donegal will start with the shock and awe defence. You know, Jim knows that there's a lot of new players here. I mean, I've been hearing stories that he was enraged at the concession of 17 points to the Dubs, and I think that there was an element in the first 15 minutes of the Donegal players not believing Jim. You could see in the first 15 minutes there was uncertainty. Once it started to become real for them, then they put their shoulders to the wheel and they shut out all the opportunities.
I think an element of that, Joe, was that they were trying to push up on the Dublin kick-out because they wanted to stop Ducks, and they left gaps. Dublin created a few simple scores in that first 20 minutes
I
because
don't think they were simple scores.
They were. When that first goal went in, they retreated, and they wanted to get to that second half to get you into that web. I think they will give opportunities and gaps in the first 20 minutes.
But the point that I'm making is that they want to start with attrition, so they don't want to start with McBrearty. I think it's most likely that what will happen is that Rory Kavanagh will start playing.
Here they come, by the way, lads. Here comes Kerry.
Kerry traditionally have had very little in the shape of stunts. They tend to put out a team and that's it, and to get on with. And they're strong enough on the bench too, because they'll have the likes of Darren O'Sullivan and Declan O'Sullivan and Brian Sheehan and Kieran O'Leary, Barry John Keane to come on. So they're fairly well versed in the subs. Now there is a doubt about the fitness of O'Sullivan and Sheehan, but we always thought that Donegal had less strength on the bench, but I think that the performance against Dublin gave the lie to that.
Well, it's in a way a column that players are interchangeable. So, for example, David Walsh, can come off. Rory Kavanagh can come on. There's not a huge difference between that. Christy Toyer, Rory Kavanagh are interchangeable. McElhinney and Toy are interchangeable. I mean, against Derry, McElhinney started as the primary player, then Toy came into the game. And because they're performing precisely the same role, I mean, they really are like Pavlov's dogs. It doesn't make that
I think
much of a
Toy
difference.
made the most significant difference
he's a
of
very
all.
good player.
Because when he came on against
Start
Dublin, he
running at
started to
Dublin.
carry the ball.
carry the
And
ball,
they
made a
had
massive
players who were doing
And he's
that
got good
early
skills.
on.
He's got good skills.
Yes,
So-
Interested in the contrast, the last two players we saw there, Kieran, we saw Declan O'Sullivan, who's a sub on today's team, of course, but has so many All-Ireland medals and All-Stars and so forth. And then James O'Donoghue, hoping for his first.
Yeah, and he's been very vocal about that. He said he's not a real Kerry player. He has an All-Ireland medal in his back pocket. Wish that was the same in Dublin, but he, you got to admire him for that. That's his goal. That's what he sets out to stall. He feels that he's driven and he's determined, and he has been the spiritual leader of the team. He's in the absence of Colin Cooper. He's come in there and with a huge amount of pressure on him, massive amount of pressure on. He's handled it fantastically well over the last.
And also we say there are no characters left in the game anymore. Nobody plays with a smile on their face. Well, I mean, I just love O'Donoghue. He comes out smiling. He wants to score. He's keen to score. He plays with a sense of adventure. He's not deterred by anything. I mean, I think this is the ultimate test for him today. But he's the sort of boy you want to see him injury-free now for a decade, because you have to say, when you see him coming, it was like wee James McCartney arriving for Down. You just say, this is thrilling. And every time the ball comes near him, there's pandemonium. So he's a throwback in a way, because he plays unself-consciously and he plays in the right spirit and with a smile on his face.
We mentioned earlier on, Colin, the fact that so many of these Kerry players, odd for Kerry, who are making their debut in this year's All-Ireland final. Take me back to that day that you played your first All-Ireland, and that feeling which Donegal, and they've been here 2 years ago, but that feeling of that run out, that rush as you run out onto the field on the big day.
Yeah, well, I think it was a bit different for a crowd of us, myself and say Liam Hayes and Jerry McEntee and Mick Lyons and Joe Castle. We were quite old.
Sure.
So we were saying to ourselves, we may never get another chance at this, and we're going to bloody well take it, come hell or high water. There's a lot of Kerry fellas probably in their early 20s might say to themselves, if we don't win it this year, we're probably going to be a better team next year and the year after. We look to gooch back. There's not many fellas now going to leave the team. So sometimes, hanging focuses the mind. When you think you might only get one shot at the title, it's like the heavyweight contender, he's coming up. He may never get to fight Fraser or Ali again. He wants to make a count, and that was a bit like that with us. And when we played in that final too, it was a bit like Donegal against Dublin. We were 5 points behind. And you have to trust yourselves at times like that as well. And the manager on the line has little influence on the field. You have to have characters on the team and character in the players. And Donegal had plenty of those when they needed them against Dublin.
And ye had them, there's no doubt about that. All right, the teams are out then, ready to go. So let's get a final word from both managers ahead of today's game. They have been speaking with Joanne Cantwell.
Well, I mean, you've played in your fair share of All-Ireland finals. What's it like now approaching it as a manager?
Yeah, it's great. It's great that it's finally here now, Joanne. There's been a lot of anticipation over the last couple of weeks, so it's great that it's finally here and we're in Croke Park now and we're ready to go to work.
And I think probably added pressure more so than usual on the two managers. It's all been talk and how this could be won on the sideline.
Yeah, look, I mean, we're realistic to know that it's the players that are going to win the game. At this stage, there's very little that we can control. The work is done on the training pitch. The lads are ready to go and we trust them to, to finish the job for us.
Jim, All-Ireland final day, do you still get nervous?
I suppose, there's a wee element of that, but I think from my own point of view anyway, the preparation's the key thing, and our preparations have gone really well. Looking forward to the game. We know what's ahead of us, obviously. A team with unbelievable pedigree at this level, and they expect to win All-Ireland, so we have to try and overcome that as well as the football match. But as I say, we've prepared really well. Everybody's in good form, and we have a beautiful day, so we're looking forward to the match.
You named a team yesterday. Is it going to bear much resemblance to the team that starts today?
Oh, it'll definitely bear a resemblance, yeah.
Will it be the same 15 that starts?
Well, we'll have to wait and see for that.
Yeah, it is then time to get confirmation of both teams from our commentary team. And today it is Martin Carney and he is with Ger Canning. Confirmation, Ger, as far as we can tell anyway, with these two sides.
Yeah, Jim is being coy as ever, but we're here savouring the atmosphere for a final pairing, I think, Michael, that very few of us had anticipated seeing when this championship began at the beginning of May. Martin, what do you think is going to happen? How do you think it'll pan out?
Well, I think it'll be very cagey early on, Ger. I must say both teams will be very defensive. I say ultimately the two game changers in the team are James Donoghue and Michael Murphy on the other side, and the midfield players will try and get ball through to them. But I'd say, the defensive element of the game I think is going to dominate, and who can become the least inhibited the quickest, I think will go on and win it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So let's have a look at the two teams insofar as we know them right now. And Kerry goalkeeper for this final is Brian Kelly. It's been an exciting first year for the 22-year-old from Legion in Killarney. The full back line shows Mark O'Shea starting at right corner back, playing in his 9th All-Ireland final, with Aidan O'Mahony set to start his 8th, each of these players with 4 wins so far. Wing back Paul Murphy has alternated between cornerback and the wing during this year's championship, while Killian Young is a link with the last Kerry team to win the All-Ireland back in 2009. Centre field has proved a Kerry strong point this summer, with Anthony Marr providing the experience to complement the undoubted qualities of David Moran. Fit again, Stephen O'Brien returns to the half-forward line, where he'll be expected to work back diligently through the lines, just like the experienced Donncha Walsh on the opposite flank. Well, a big performance is needed as well from Paul Gainey, thus enabling Kieran Donaghy and James O'Donoghue to tip the balance in Kerry's favour. Well, Donegal goalkeeper, 30-year-old Paul Durkin, has already kept his goal intact in 3 matches so far this year, helped in no small way by the vigilance of a full back line in which the McGee brothers, Eamon and Neil, have continued to perform at the highest level alongside Paddy McGrath. In the half-line, former Footballer of the Year, Carol Lacey, looks to be well clear of the injuries that blighted his progress last season. Indeed, against Dublin, he looked close to his best and even kicked an early crucial score. Between them, midfielders Neil Gallagher and Oran McNeilish have played in 42 championship matches. Mind you, Gallagher has played in 37 of those. Donegal's half-forwards are multi-purpose, sharply illustrated by Ryan McHugh, who was once again the star of the show against Dublin, finishing off his afternoon with a very convincing 2 goals and 2 points. And as ever, Donegal looked to the lion-hearted captain Michael Murphy to produce yet another memorable afternoon, with the gifted Colin McFadden still a huge threat. And Michael, after everything we've seen over the last month, Donegal's stunning win over Dublin in particular, who could predict with any kind of certainty, especially when Kerry are involved, what's likely to happen here between now and 5 o'clock? It's a fascinating prospect.
It certainly is. It's going to be a mystery as well to most of us, but we'll find out when that ball is thrown in. All right, let's head pitch side right now to get a final view from either camp ahead of throw-in. And we're going to join Pat Spillane, who of course is an 8 times winner with Kerry, and Mark McHugh, who was part of Donegal's winning team from 2 years ago. Gentlemen, great to see you down there. You're very welcome indeed. Mark, you were here 2 years ago. You won that All-Ireland, and all of us remember, and we so loved that emotional moment at the end of the match where you embraced your dad, Martin, and all that feeling. So today is obviously bringing all of that back to you.
Yeah, exactly. It was just down this corner here where we are. and it was it was a great experience that day. It's kind of different feeling today waking up this morning. But with Ryan playing in this team and the team, most of my best friends out in that field there, I'm so looking forward to this match and hoping that Donegal can take another All-Ireland back to Donegal.
On a personal level, Mark, any regrets this morning waking up thinking to yourself, you know what, maybe I should be still part of this?
Yeah, listen, there's always a wee bit of regret and a wee bit of sickness in the pit of your stomach this morning, but as I said, when I made my decision back in March and April, I said to myself, I knew this day might have come, so I said, no looking back. So I went and enjoyed my summer in America, and I saw a bit of the world. And I'm coming back now, and I'm fully behind the Donegal team. I still socialise and stuff with the boys all the time, and we're buzzing in Donegal at the minute. Very unfortunate what happened to the minors there earlier on. So we're hoping everything's going to go well, and it's going to take a massive 70 minutes for Donegal to do this.
Well, mentioned that minor match, Pat Spillane, of course, as part of the broad Spillane family, a proud family right now, because, of course, your nephew Killian has won that All-Ireland medal with Kerry.
It was. It's a very proud day for the family. 20 years since we last won an All-Ireland minor title in Kerry. Now that puts Kerry top of the table above Dublin with 12 All-Ireland titles, and it was lovely to see Killian. He's a good young lad, very focused, very composed, and please God, all going well, fingers crossed, and with a bit of luck and injury free, he'll go on to grace the fields with the Kerry seniors as well. So it was a lovely day and a great start, and perhaps maybe a little omen, in the way that maybe Kerry might set out to play Donegal, because Donegal minors are a little bit they're a replica really of the seniors, and they set out with a blanket and with a sweeper, and Kerry's ability to kick past, Kerry's vision, Kerry's composure on the ball, Kerry's ability to score from outside the D, long range points out the wing and break it pace through the centre. So hopefully they're the ingredients for success maybe for the seniors as well.
You're saying hopefully, but the question is, can Kerry do it today? What's your feeling now, Pat, as you're getting close to the match?
Well, honestly, Michael, the closer I'm getting to the game, I'm thinking it's Kerry. Now, Donegal are justifiable favourites because they gave the best performance of this year's championship against Dublin. Tactically, they're the best team in the country, and they're light years ahead of everyone else in terms of their defensive system, which is superb. They were brilliant against Dublin. And on the negative for Kerry, we know Kerry struggled against blanket defences. We know Kerry's record against Ulster teams and Northern teams is poor. It's since 1953, Kerry have played 6 Ulster teams in 6 finals and lost 5. And we know we struggle with teams with physicality and that blanket type defence. But I think strip away all of that and I look at it and forget about the Dublin performance, because I think Dublin came into that game undercooked and they collapsed for the final 50 minutes. I don't think it deserves serious analysis. I think serious analysis of Donegal's performance might come from the other games against Derry, against Antrim, against Monaghan and against Armagh, where they were okay, they won, but they weren't world beaters. I'll tell you why I think Kerry, Michael. First of all, Kerry are coming in under the radar. No pressure, they're underdogs. Kerry bring tradition to Croke Park, Michael, but more importantly than tradition, they bring belief. There isn't a Kerry player that will set foot in Croke Park that believe that they can win today, and that belief has been growing all year, because I think physically they've evolved as a team over the 2 years. Physically stronger, physically fitter, tackling, turnover, savage. Tactically, Dublin it was easy to outwit Dublin because Dublin were a one-trick pony. Kerry, in terms of tactics, can do all sorts of tactics. They can play a blanket defence, they can play a sweeper. In attack, they can play a 2-man full forward line, they can play a 3-man full forward line. They have great composure on the ball. Against Cork, they went 25 minutes without giving a pass away. Against Galway, they went 31 minutes without giving a pass away. So why do I think Kerry? I think there's momentum behind them. I think there's belief, and I think there's great character. They came from 5 points down, Michael, in the drawn game to draw with Mayo. Showed great character coming from behind at different periods in the replay. And I just think, destiny, their name is on the cup. I genuinely believe Kerry can upset the bookies today.
Mark, Pat is talking there about destiny, he's talking about belief and all those kind of things, but surely from Donegal's point of view, you can't be short of belief, having won this thing 2 years ago.
No, and exactly, and listen, the one man has put the belief into Donegal this last number of years is Jim McGuinness, and he has them boys so well prepared for this match. You know, they went away again, you know, 2 weeks ago there for a 5-day training camp, and you know, everything that could happen today would have been went through in them meetings and them training sessions. He's going to have them so mentally well prepared. The belief in Donegal at the minute is absolutely awesome. I said if the Donegal lads had money, they would have put their house on it to beat Dublin. That's how confident they were, and they're the exact same today. You know, I would disagree totally with Pat. I think this is Donegal's to lose. I think if Donegal can stop the ball going into the full forward line and minimise as much possession James O'Donoghue and Kieran Donegan get, I think there can be only one winner here today, because looking at the game changer for Donegal, Michael Murphy up front, he has Kerry a man to mark him. I'm not so sure. So listen, I think Donegal could come away maybe a 4 or 5 point victory here today, Michael.
All right, lads, thanks very much indeed for that. And as you would expect, the two lads fully convinced that their side is going to win. There's what it's all about. Kieran Whelan, you had a look at it close up here in the studio a little bit earlier on, but
you're a low dog.
I just said but. I didn't say any more. Did I say any more?
You know, listen, both lads very confident in their own county's ability, but I think one of the crucial areas, Michael, in this game is going to be that mid-late. We saw when Kerry lost their way in that semi-final when Mayo were behind coming in at half-time, and they turned it round, and that was through midfield dominance. And I think that the kick-outs from both teams are crucial in that regard. You know, Paul Durkin varies his kick-outs. He picks out McNeilis down the wing, but he also hits a very, very long ball that lands in the centre-forward position. Now, if Donegal lose that possession, they still have 12 men behind the ball. They're still perfectly set up. Brian Kelly, on the other hand, has a fairly short kick out, and it lands in his own half, and he's fairly consistently, he prefers going out the right side, but it lands short. Now, Jim McGuinness will have identified this. He will see it as an area to try and put Kerry on the back foot, and if they get a period of dominance and they have those half-backs coming through on that breaking ball off that kick out, they can do a bit of damage.
You would think, Colin O'Rourke, that Jim McGuinness had said it all to the players at this stage, and they forensically go through all of this. But as we can see the last few minutes there, he's down and has been down in the huddle in the field, and he's given it socks.
He might be telling them who's playing, because he's delayed it so long. The big advantage of keeping the team late and keeping it away from being picked early in the week is that everybody is absolutely tuned in. No matter what happens, when a team is picked, a fellow who's not on can switch off a little bit at team meetings and so on. But if everybody has to focus in on exactly what their job is going to be, because they still think they might start, it is a big advantage. So I think before the game, I often think things which are told before the game sort of go over your head, because you know you're tuned in yourself to what's going on. It worked against Dublin, you know. The winners write history, isn't that the way it is?
It's purely motivational at this stage.
Sure.
And this system was conceived 4 years ago. You think of how many hundreds of sessions they've had perfecting this, you know, and everything is so meticulous. I mean, I met the Donegal kit man down in the bowels of the stadium before the match, and I asked him, you know, I said, like, who deals with you, you know, through the management team? He says, oh, Jim, only Jim. I mean, he deals with everything. He says he's been on the phone this morning to make sure we're here at the right time. He tells us what we're to bring. All the orders come from Jim, you know, and no one else does anything else. He has backroom people there, but Jim orchestrates everything. You know, this is classically a script, and the boys play their roles in that script.
Joe, the only question mark hanging over Donegal is Dublin really let them play the system that day, and Dublin played into their hands. You know, they weren't very efficient up to that semi-final point, and you have to take the Dublin performance as a very, very poor performance in terms of their half-backs getting sucked into the forward line, and it allowed Donegal dictate the terms of the game. I think Kerry will try and stifle that today.
There's no doubt.
They have to, and they will go very defensive.
But there is another interesting facet, I think, of the Donegal experiment, which is that they seem to always come to the pitch at the right time. Now, it looks very much as if Darragh O'Connor is going to start, which is something that we had speculated about. It's unlikely that McBrearty will start. Darragh O'Connor will start in the full forward line.
Rory Kavanagh will start.
Rory Kavanagh will probably start instead of Toy or instead of McBrearty. So they're... But again, that's well within what they normally do. It's a 19-man game for Donegal, and any one of them can play at any time, so it's not a surprise to them.
All right, well, Uachtar Hearn, Michael D. Higgins is here for football's big day and ready to meet the teams. So let's hand back to Ger for the moment.
Shock to Uachtar Ish, Michael Mihal D. O'Higgins. massive outpouring of emotion. The 2014 All-Ireland football final, a tantalising prospect, and a first ever, of course, Kerry Donegal final. The setting is perfect. Let's hope the football is likewise. Referee Eddie Kinsella from Laois is preparing himself. It's Kerry who won the toss. They play from left to right on the first half. Pretty much a perfect day for football. And a little bit of sunshine right now, breaking through the clouds, is shining down on Hill 16. And I'll be honest with you, I think it's all Donegal with a few refugees from Kerry in there as well. But the colour clashes, you just don't know today. Last time they played in the 2012 championship, they changed colours to provincial colours, but not today. They wanted to play in their own usual county colours on the biggest day of all. And straight away, Rory Cavan is going in for the toss in the middle of the park. Usually it's Michael Murphy, as switches and changes are going to be made, and that will change